Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super discussion video. And I am once again joined by Rakurai from Rakurai Network. Man, what is up? Say hello to everyone listening here.
What is up, guys? This is KJ, aka Rakurai Network, bringing you guys a brand new video with Real to Real Productions. Thank you for having me, as always.
No worries, man. No worries. No problem either. Anyway, guys, we're going to be talking today. You saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. We're going to be talking about Zamasu and whether or not how he could come back. We'll get to that later, but whether he actually should come back in Dragon Ball Super. Because, look, just in general, man, like, would you say that he is one of the best villains, not only in Dragon Ball Super, but basically through the entire franchise? Like, what are your thoughts on him stacked up against some of the best? We're talking Frieza, Piccolo, Daimao, Cell, Broly for some people. So, I mean, like, what are your thoughts on him just in general?
Okay, by far, to me at least, because I actually made a tweet earlier saying that my favorite villain throughout, and probably favorite character throughout all of Dragon Ball is Goku Black. And you know that, of course, transitive property, that's Zamasu. Zamasu is by far, at least to me, the most complex and the best written villain that Dragon Ball's ever seen. Just his ideologies, his morality, or at least his self-proclaimed morality, for that matter. The the I suppose there's this certain level of overall malevolence with him to where he almost thinks that he is a good guy in several ways, which makes him so chilling to watch, because everything that he does, he thinks he's doing it for a specific reason of being, of trying to save the universe or whatever by just getting rid of the Ningen. and and our friendly neighborhood Zamas is basically just trying to save everyone. That's his mentality. But it's just the fact that we're seeing his actions, we're seeing what he does, we're seeing the evil that's just exuding from this man, whereas he thinks he's doing a service to everyone. So it's just this complex here. And then with Goku Black, there's that whole thing of once he attains Super Saiyan Rose, especially, you can tell he starts becoming a bit more Saiyan like. It starts actually messing with him, with his own mindset, and that eventually leads to his downfall in a way. So it's just Zamasu in general, I think, is the best written villain Dragon Ball's ever seen. So yes, but for sure he's up there. He has an A+ from me.
I mean, in terms of overall villains, I wouldn't say, and I wouldn't go as far as saying that he's one of the best anime villains ever written. Obviously, we've seen these tropes that you just described from other people in other forms of literature and television and movies, anime, doesn't matter what genre or anything. They've done this type of story before, and several other things have actually done it better. But with this character in general, yeah, you're right. We have never really seen a villain from Dragon Ball Super Z, the original GT, otherwise, whatever, have so much depth to what he's actually doing. It puts a lot on the table when you have someone who's doing what he's doing in order to, I guess, proclaim he's doing the right thing, or he believes he's doing the right thing. It's not the same thing for Vegeta or Nappa or Raditz or Frieza or Cell or Boo or anything else like that. It's just like what they know, what they believe they deserve, or something else like that. With Zamasu, he's literally doing this because he believes that he deserves better, but all the gods deserve better. No, of course, like you said, with the Black situation becoming more like a Saiyan, he gets, and I think his message in his own mind, especially when they merge and all that other stuff, is kind of mixed between what you were describing with Black and Zamasu when they have to, when they're basically declaring themselves the ultimate god and basically the only one who should be around. It gets, and I think that there's a lot of depth to that, and definitely he is one of the best things that Dragon Ball Super has ever come up with. But just going off of that, the one reason I would really like to see him come back, just my opinion, is I feel like if Zamasu were to have been placed in the main timeline where his actions and the depth of destruction that he actually laid waste to all the other universes and everybody else in Trunks' timeline, if that were to all be placed in the main timeline, I feel like it would actually feel bigger, and it would have actually felt like there was more stakes to the entire story. It's not that what they did was bad, it's just Trunks' timeline was already messed up. We weren't necessarily fearing for the lives of people like Krillin or Tenshinhan Piccolo, Bulma. I mean, obviously Bulma got killed, but you know what I mean. Goten, the families of all these other people and all these characters we came to know and love, because we had already seen that happen in that timeline back in Dragon Ball Z, and it really hurt the weight of his character and what he brought to the table, at least in my opinion. And if they were to bring him back in some way, then it would make a lot of sense, at least for me, to bring him back into a world where the main timeline is actually the center focus of his destructive, I guess, mentality, or his godlike mentality. What are your thoughts?
I have a few thoughts on this. Like, for one, I think that that's a sort of story that I feel is worthy of a movie in itself, in a way. Like, just the return of Zamasu and actually being in the main timeline. I feel like that warrants a film. I honestly think that would be the, like, I guess the first Dragon Ball Super movie that would ever drop. I think that's easily a great idea for it. Now, I love the Trunks arc like so much. You know this. Anyone who follows me knows this. But I think if they were to make an opening for Zamasu to return, the best way they could have done that, and I'll go to a further way of how they could, but the way that they could have done it in the smoothest way was by sealing him in the Mafuba jar. That would have opened it up so much. If that would have been how the arc ended, Goku pulls off the Mafuba, or Trunks pulls off the Mafuba for that matter, and actually gets to seal Zamasu, and then the arc ends, and then maybe at some point, some way he gets released in the main timeline. That would be great. I think that would have opened it up perfectly for that. But the fact that they didn't take that route kind of puts them in a corner. What they could potentially do, maybe, is, and I've seen this theory float around a few times, the whole idea that Zamasu becoming the universe is a bit more complicated than we may think, and that could lead to so much more for his story, because even though the entire universe got eviscerated, there were still, like, and this is just for me just reiterating the words of what other people have said, there were still, like, little pieces of Zamasu's being that were just still floating around, and whether or not they all got eviscerated or not, we don't know for sure. So they could pull a similar situation to what they did with Cell when he returned. They could say, like, well, this one part of me was still remaining that is essential to a Kaioshin, thus I was able to come back, or something like that. We don't know for sure. Or what they could do, and this is extreme headcanon, so bear with me here. They could introduce the entire idea of a Makaioshin into Dragon Ball Super by having him return as a Makaioshin, and somehow that giving him the opportunity to come back.
So, like, I mean, you would have to really play, like you said, headcanon. You'd have to really play with the lore of Dragon Ball, but introduce Makaioshin as destroyed, or I guess, like, literally beings that are destroyed from gods of destruction or something like that, where they grow from that evil or that, I guess, displacement in the universe, because it does definitely put a displacement in the universe. And as I said in other videos, at least what we seems to have said to Beerus once he destroys Zamasu is, with that action, he created another time ring. Because I guess it was just such a big shift in, like, what was supposed to happen that another time ring became real. But at the same time, I was wondering, like, well, I mean, it has to be that, because Beerus and Shappa and all the other gods of destruction destroy things willfully. I mean, that's their whole job. If every time they destroy something or Hakai something and gone from existence, like, completely, no afterlife, no nothing, then they must be changing the timeline, which can't be true, because we saw in Universe 9, you saw, like, a entire city get vaporized. So there has to be some, and even now, like, all these universes are being vaporized by Zeno. They're not creating new time rings. So that's just a little off the hand a point I wanted to make there. But just going off of what you're saying, yeah, that would be kind of cool to introduce Makaioshin. A lot of us back in the day thought that actually Zamasu was a Makaioshin. Obviously that didn't necessarily pan out. I have an idea that I want to say, like, how they would bring him back in a way that I feel would make sense, but I want your opinions on it. But before I get there, I really want to talk about, when it comes to Zamasu, ultimately you always think of Goku Black. And wondering, whether or not if they do bring back Zamasu for his mainstay villain or someone who attacks again, like you said, be it in a movie that's canonized to the entire story or it's not. Do you also bring back Goku Black or do you keep just Zamasu? And before you answer, I just want to say I personally think that you get rid of Goku Black. As cool as Goku Black was, I honestly feel like it's kind of a gimmick, and it gives the audience a chance, and also the creators of the story a chance to recreate Zamasu in a more interesting way, or at least in a different way. Because if you bring Goku Black back into the fray, then you ultimately have the same beat for beat fight mentality, friend structure that they had, and you have to continue that story. If you just bring back one person who probably, like you said, might not necessarily be the Zamasu that we're familiar with, but maybe from another timeline or something into this, then he can actually develop into a completely different villain, and I think that that would be really interesting to see.
You are not going to believe me at first, but I'm glad you brought this up, and I agree with you 100%. Because I was literally just thinking about this when we were off the air, and I honestly, I honestly, I gotta agree with you. I've always felt that if they were to bring back Zamasu, they need to get rid of Goku Black for it, or at least if I were to be at the most like, um, I suppose conservative level for it, I would say one or the other, but just don't bring back both. That's my whole thing. Now I would love to see Zamasu like and not have Goku Black in there because let's be honest here, a lot of people feel like the entire arc sort of went downhill when when that main secret was revealed that Zamasu was Goku Black and that there was, they've been in cahoots and stuff. Like, since when Zamasu was in fact the main antagonist, a lot of people say that that's when it started dropping off. And, all the quote unquote inconsistencies and plot holes aside, that's something that I can't really just brush to the wayside as just a coincidence. I think that there is a certain level of Zamasu's character that didn't appeal as much as the idea of an evil Goku that was done as well as Goku Black was. And the thing about Goku Black now is, I'm not gonna lie, right? I miss Goku Black when they fused into Merge Zamasu. That even though that animation sequence was so cool and everything, it kind of hurt me a little bit because, again, as you know, Goku Black's my favorite character, so to just see him leave like that was just like, well, dang. But it was necessary. It's that thing where sometimes in a story you can't get what you want. It's just things have to happen to leave a certain impact and for it to resonate upon you, and that's what Goku Black not being in the story would do. It would give Zamasu the chance to be the shining villain from the very beginning of the story, whereas in the Trunks arc, it was Goku Black from the very beginning that was the main threat, and then Zamasu kind of just felt like, well, I'm not that strong, but I'm immortal, so, suck it. That's essentially what it felt like. I pulled a psych there, but that's essentially what it felt like. It was kind of like Zamasu was just kind of there. And even though his ideals were still there, you don't need two of the same person telling you the exact same plan that they already told you in an arc beforehand. And just being like, we're back to gain revenge on the Ningen, and then just both of them going back and forth. It's like, we've done this already. So I agree with you. I think Goku Black needs to stay out of this particular one. If they it just wouldn't work again, I don't think, because we know Goku Black's abilities. We know what he can do. We know that he keeps getting stronger. There's nothing new they could surprise us with except a new transformation, and that's not really something that I think adds depth to a character. Rose changed Goku Black, I think, a lot personality wise, because the transformations affect people in certain ways, and for Goku Black that's no different. But that would be all they could really do with him. They couldn't really shock us anymore. The mystery's already gone that he's Zamasu. So yeah, Zamasu being the main guy, give him the spotlight as the main antagonist for this time around, and let him actually be the main threat that people are actually afraid of. Unlike in the Trunks arc, where again we were all worried about Goku Black, and then Zamasu's just like, oh, hey, that guy's here. Like, you know what I mean a little bit. I guess that's my thoughts on that. So I agree with you.
The thing is, when it comes to Zamasu, the last point I'll make here and why I feel like they should actually keep Goku Black away from any potential return of Zamasu is just plainly, I think he is a versatile villain. He can, and we've seen him be able to basically, I guess, recreate himself in a lot of different ways. We saw the original Zamasu, the one in our timeline, basically deciding, figuring out, becoming kind of more clear of exactly how he wants to approach his Zero Negan plan, which was interesting because he didn't start off that way, and you get to see that evolution, something we don't necessarily get to see for a lot of the main villains in Dragon Ball history. And then you get to see Goku Black, who we at the time he said like we didn't know it was Zamasu, but these two people are really different. It was one of the things that at least me I was saying for a long time, like if they do fuse, which they did, but if they do fuse, this is what's going to be their main downfall, and it kind of was, but not as much as I was thinking. And then we got to see the immortal Zamasu, I guess, have a higher opinion of himself. Once they fused, they had an even higher opinion of themselves. And the Zero Negan plan, although it was still the Zero Negan plan, kept kind of changing with the idea of like how they saw themselves, not just Black, but Zamasu and present Zamasu and everything. It felt like it was a constantly shifting idea of what it meant to be a god and who deserved to live and who deserved to die, to the point where he was the only one who was he was the only one who was worthy. And I think that was really cool, but I think you get bogged down in that if you bring back Goku Black, and if you let Zamasu see something, he attacks them, he comes back for a different reason, then because of all that, you have basically a clean slate other than a recognizable face and an awesome type of villain that can play off of Goku and the emotions of everyone who fought him or knew about him beforehand, but also give him another reason to fight, not just the Zero Negan plan. You get rid of that completely. And jumping off of that, I just want to give my 2 cents on how I think this would happen. So I don't know why, and I don't know how. All of this is headcanon, but bear with me. Zamasu from our timeline, uses the time rings to jump forward to the current place where he comes back in Dragon Ball Super. Because we know the time rings can't go backwards in time; they can only go forwards unless there's that time break where Trunks came back and then Black was able to go back before it basically shot him backwards or back into Trunks' timeline in the future, which was weird. But I think what happens is, and you kind of play off, you have to kind of play off, and I don't know how, maybe you can explain it after the Tournament of Power. They wish, I don't know why, but they wish is like, okay, I wish we could go back to a simpler time, and maybe we erase, just to erase all the erasing of all these universes and basically put everything back to normal. But as we saw with Cell, if you go back, and especially if they remember and they know everything that was going on, then potentially you could kind of take away Zamasu ever getting erased, or maybe even going back all the way to the Champa arc or something, just to kind of stop Zeno from wanting to actually do this or something. And at that time point, Zamasu would be alive, and all the other universes would be alive and know what was going on, especially the ones who were actually at the tournament. But lo and behold, someone like Zamasu wasn't at the tournament, but Gowasu was, and the Gods of Destruction in Universe 11 were, or 10, and then he gets to know, he understands, they might tell him, and he starts watching GodTube, and he has these views and everything before, and then he comes back in a different way or something. I'm just spitballing, but this is something that I think that would be interesting. Use the time rings for a good purpose, make him go forward in time, make him do something. I just thoughts on that. I know it's kind of off the top of my head, but I think that would be a cool way to bring him back.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is I've never ever seen on the internet somebody bring up the possibility that they could wish to go back in time. I never thought of that. I don't know how I didn't think of that. I don't know how anyone else didn't think of that. I've never seen that one. That would be awesome, first of all, before I say anything. That would be incredible if they decided all the universes are gone, let's just go back in time before any of this happened. that would be something. Concerning the Zamasu going forward in time, that's interesting too, because that could potentially bring a lot of things to light. Because also the whole thing about, there's always that theory of there's always an infinite amount of timelines. Like that's something that's been in DC, in Marvel to a certain extent. That's been everywhere. That there are just so many timelines that are created, and if the Zamasu from that timeline in which that was created from Beerus destroying him, if somewhere back at that point, Zamasu goes forward in time or something like that, and then reconstitutes his plan in the present timeline, that would be interesting. That would just be a matter at that point of how the writers would do that. That would be
Well,
complicated.
like okay, like go off of this, go off of what they said in the show. Beerus tells or Whis tells Beerus that he created a new time ring when he destroyed Zamasu, which indicates, at least to me, that there is another timeline out there where he didn't. If I'm understanding this, I might not be understanding that correctly, but there is at least another Zamasu out there in some other timeline that exists that got to see as he's training for this, and maybe even coming up with the same plan, maybe not, that there's all these new time rings being created at the same time. That would make anybody curious. like, especially, Gawasu's just like, they get some idiot, when he's referring to Trunks, basically saying some idiot took it away or made a new time ring and whatever. And you're not supposed to do that. But Zamasu is really type of person who would be curious. So maybe he would use it. Maybe he would go forward in time in that timeline based on where he is. So if you have Beerus erasing Zamasu, that new time ring shows up in another timeline where Zamasu is actually alive. Maybe he just puts on that time ring and does everything Black and Zamasu did themselves, where they're going forward in time in the main timeline, and then he gets to see and sees what's going on. And maybe he also hates Goku. He never met him before, but maybe he hates Goku because of everything that's happening in the Tournament of Power. This mortal decided that all of these things get destroyed, including the gods. This is ridiculous. This isn't what I believe. And then you kind of have this thing where not only is he mad at Goku, but he's also mad at Zeno, and that's what I'm saying. He can adapt his Zero Negan plan or Zero God plan or whatever it would become at that point, and you have a really powerful enemy, especially if you have someone going after Zeno.
Yeah, that would. I can see it. I can see that. That's one of those things where it would really just depend on how they would pull it off. But if they do it the way that you just said, I think that would, at least to me at least, that would make sense in my own head. Now, somebody, and I'm sure you're trying to close it off soon, but one more thing. There was somebody who DM'd me the other day, and I'm not even gonna give my opinion on this yet. I just want you to give your take first. Somebody DM'd me at one point, probably a week ago, and they asked me, would you think that there's any propensity for Zamasu from another timeline to come back as a good guy? I want to just get your opinion on that before I even start.
I really wanted Zamasu to become a good guy by the end of all this, and the truth is he didn't. And after all that we've seen, I don't think he will, and that's fine. That's fine considering we might never see him again. But after what we saw in the last arc, even though I felt like they could have approached this a little better, could have done a less confusing job at trying to explain what was going on. Personally, I believe that Zamasu would only make a good villain. And I would really like to see him come back because I think, like we've discussed here, he's a really versatile villain. He's not just Frieza, who, let's be honest, can get a little boring at times because he's kind of one note. Recently that's changed, but bringing him back for the Fakatsu no F arc of Dragon Ball Super, bringing him back to fight on Earth and Trunks killing him and all that stuff, same guy, over and over, same guy, same mistakes, everything. And so it just got a little boring. So I think he's a step above, at least in that sense.
Yeah, well, I agree with you completely. So I just wanted to see what you thought about that, because that's one of the, and if you're the person who sent me that DM, because I'm not gonna name drop just in case, but if you are that person, just put your name in the comments, because that's one of the most interesting questions I've ever received, and I wanted to save that for an eventual video, and I thought this would be a good time. So thank you for that, whoever you are, and yeah.
Just on a clear note, I want to make it clear though that I would love to see Zamasu come back as a main character. I think he's an interesting person, and his ideology, if shifted to being a good character, a good guy, would really work for the show, especially when you compare him with Goku, especially their connection that we saw in this series. I would be for it. I just don't, like I said, I just don't see it happening. But anyway, guys, we're going to leave it at that. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Please make sure to go down to the description section below. Hit that link and go subscribe to KJ's channel. The guy makes some really awesome content. Anyway, guys, hope everyone likes, comments, and subscribes. Make sure to hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. But with that being said, we hope everyone has a good day. It's been real.
If you enjoy Mark's video, please be sure to share the video with people that you know and people that you don't know, but that you just want to harass with Mark's videos, in which case he says thank you. And please subscribe to his channel if you are new. That's it. All right, peace out, guys.